Tilos is not only good for planning a project, it's also good for monitoring a project, the project controls phase. And before we start a project in the project controls phase, it's a good thing to first of all make a baseline. That's a snapshot at this moment in time when all of the activities are saved with sufficient information to carry out earned value analysis. Not absolutely everything, but just enough. And you can have multiple baselines, and you can choose which one is the active baseline. And it's also at this point that we set what is the future report date against which we'll be progressing. So every week or month, you can move that on, and we can see the effect of that. So if we go back to our diagram on the time distance diagram or on the Gantt chart, if we go to the display tab, we can see that report date on screen. So those downward arrows onto a line indicate the boundary between the past and the future. Everything upwards from that line is in the past, and everything downwards from that line is in the future. So if we take an activity and we can say what's happened to it, and so we can select an activity. If we right mouse click on it or press the F11 key, we get this dialog, and every activity can have the progressing method dictated. And because this is a linear project, we're saying that it's been progressed by distance. So what we should have done is we were starting at 100 meters, and at this particular date, starting originally when we said up to this date, we should have got to this position. We should have done just short of 1,235 meters of work. That's where we should be along the route. But in fact, we can go and examine that. So it's a very physical thing to record. And we've only reached 1,100 meters. And one of the reasons for that is we didn't actually start until the 5th of July. So we can set the start and end date of this little progress section down to the minute, and we can set how much work we've actually carried out in that period. And so when we say OK, then we can highlight those activities on the plan. So we can see that we can choose to mark the progress up in a number of ways. So we can mark it up with this yellow background marker. So behind any line, we can have a deep, thick, like a marker pen to show where it's been progressed, or we can choose a line style and cross it out. But so it means we've done this amount of work. This amount of work should have happened. It's before time now. And if we were to reschedule the program, we can see the impact that's got, and it's been pushed on ahead of time now. Everything must happen in the future. We could affect the remaining duration. And here I've got an annotation that's showing me that we originally planned to finish in the baseline on the 2nd of October, and currently we're projecting that we'll finish on the 5th of October, which, if we take the time into account, is just over 3 days in delay. So it's rather good for demonstrating those aspects. When you progress an activity, as I said earlier on the Progress tab, we choose how to progress that particular task. So this is a quantity related task. If we were to progress that, we'd be doing it in cubic meters. How many meters have we done at this point, and how many should we have done? Or if we have just a more normal task, which we're just going to progress by a percentage, we can just say that on this particular task we are only going to say that we've done a certain percentage. We've done 40% at this particular date. So all sorts of different ways to progress a task, being the most appropriate for the task that you've got in hand. So TARS is excellent at recording what's actually happened, an as-built program, projecting what is likely to happen, and they'll allow you to take mitigation steps.